Hello, hi, it's the Rev Pipster here. Want to share a story, and I think I have shared this story in the past before, and I'm just going to repeat it again because two things have come up on Yahoo on the news page again, which I've been reading about. Okay, the same subject, and that is the Yemen, Islam, terrorism. Okay, the Yemen, Islam, and terrorism has come up again, and what is taking place in the Yemen and the actions of certain terrorist groups who profess to be Muslims. Now, I do not believe that all Muslims are terrorists, and I'm not saying that at all, but it has been said that there are differences in interpretation in the Quran, and obviously there are. You've got the Shiites, you've got the Sunnis, with different theological histories and behind them, and approaches, interpretations of the Quran behind them, and practices, and it's widely obvious around the world that certain members of these groups take to an extreme where they will actually kill people who are of that different sect and feel justified in doing so, and they use the Quran in order to do this. And with people say, you know, well, what about Northern Ireland, the Catholics, the Protestants? Don't they do the same things, the Troubles, etc.? And yes, people claiming to be Christians, claiming to be Protestants, claiming to be Catholics, claiming to be Baptist, whatever it might be, do go out and commit the most terribly atrocious atrocities and crimes, and they need to be punished for it. The difference is, however, in the writings and the authority of the scriptures, the Bible, the Old Testament and New Testament, and the words of the chief honcho, pardon me the expression, the number one leader, prophet, person who the scripture is all about, who is seen as the authority, the pinnacle, in the case of the Bible being Jesus Christ. He made some very, very clear statements. Love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, pray for they who persecute you. For if you love only those who love you, why should you claim any credit? Even the tax collectors and sinners do the same. Okay, so he's made some very, very clear statements. St. Paul made some very, very clear statements. John made some very, very clear statements. Okay, this kind of behaviour is not expected of a Christian. The indiscriminate murder of men, women and children is not Christian behaviour. Anyone who professes to be a Christian and yet does these things puts themselves at odds with the God of the Bible. The God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob is against you in your actions, if that is what you believe. In the Quran there are scriptures that are not so clear cut, that are obviously wildly open to interpretation. That's all I want to say. People accept them, people don't, but nonetheless they're there, and people do commit crimes believing that they have the authority of their God and their prophet to do so. You know, we never once heard, there's never once written in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, of Jesus Christ beheading people. You know, they were all, you know, as much as he disliked what the Jewish authorities were doing in the temple, he never said to his disciples, "You should go and behead them," or because they're not from the truth. You know, he was going to save that for a court of law, for justice to be done on Judgment Day, and they shall look upon him who they pierced. This story I heard when I was at a church in Wallingford, in Oxfordshire. We had a visiting missionary around 1999, 2000, that sort of time, and this guy was a missionary to sailors. That's the organisation he was representing when he came over here. His parish was in the Yemin, and it's on a port in the Yemen and the surrounding areas, where he would provide Christian aid and any other service that sailors, that pastoral service that sailors may feel they need to, if they're Christian or not. He would go and give support for. A friendly face of someone who's intended to be helpful to them, whatever their needs might be, when they arrive from long sea journeys. And when he came in to our church, he told about a convent of nuns, which is in his parish in Yemen, which is the area, the geographical area he serves, and the team he leads. And these nuns, who are, if you can imagine, like the Mary Sisters, the like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, those sort of things. That's what they did. They went into the villages and the places where sometimes people just didn't want to go, and they lived the Christian life and they served the people. And he said, among these nuns and things, it's not uncommon for because some of them were converts to Christianity, and some were not Muslim at all in their life. They'd been brought up in as Christians themselves, and they decided to devote their lives to service of others. It was not uncommon for them to be beaten, raped, and murdered for not being Muslim, and for, of course, promoting Jesus Christ as the Son of God, as God Himself, the Christian God of the Trinity. And he said this, just 2 weeks before he came to us, two nuns coming back from serving in a large village or small town community in near where he actually works, were shot, ambushed before they even left the village, were shot in the streets, targeted because they were Christians. It happens nowadays. So this is back in the year 2000. But he also told me a story that I actually knew about in some ways. Around 1997, 98 sort of time, I was in Birmingham, which is an area of England called the West Midlands, basically central England. Basically, Birmingham's the second city, and I remember listening to the BBC radio station and then seeing it on TV. Community leaders from an area of a very large community of Muslims. There's a lot of Muslims in Birmingham, found the highly populated area is around the region of Alum Rock. If you look, if you go to Alum Rock, and along Alum Rock Road, it's all halal butchers and Islamic fashions, etc. There's there are very few Westerners on those streets. It's although maybe with the influx of the Eastern Europeans, the Poles, etc., so you might see some more Westerners there than beforehand, because it was a more economically viable area to live in for people on low incomes. But yeah, community leaders were in an uproar. I watched the news debate of how 6 young men had travelled to the Yemen from Birmingham, been arrested, accused of terrorism, and the Yemenis government were going to imprison them for a long time, and the British government appeared to wash their hands of them. So we don't want to know. And they were saying, the passports do say, these are British subjects and of Her Majesty the Queen, and we request that any assistance that they require be given to them. And they were saying, it's not fair. The government, these men haven't even been tried, and the government are washing their hands of them. Well, one of these young men ended up in a prison in the parish which this guy was pastor over, basically, and he was going mental. Not only was he going mental because prisoners in the Yemen are not treated with human dignity very well. He was also going mental because the only people who seemed to give him any respect, any dignity, any compassion was a small group of nuns from this convent who would come in and give basic medical treatment, counsel, listen to, and support. They were the only people who treated them like human beings. And he said something very profound. This guy from Birmingham in England said something that was very profound. He said he couldn't understand why they were doing this for him, because he admitted to them that he was from Birmingham. He was one of those 6 young men tried and convicted by the Yemeni government for terrorism acts and conspiracy to commit terrorism, and his hands were washed by the British terrorists. And he said, yes, we came over here to commit acts of terrorism, and you nuns were on our hit list. And you couldn't understand why they still came week after week after week and treated him exactly the same, knowing what he was there for, knowing that he'd been sent over by, I'm not saying these same community leaders in Birmingham had done it, but there were other people before the war terror, before 9/11. There were other people who were sending British Muslims to the Middle East to commit acts of terror and to kill Christians. And he found in these nuns, he found a Christian identity which he had not been told about. He found love, he found care. And it happens. I just want to share that, that it happens. No matter what anyone else says, there are people in this country, in Britain and in America, everywhere else as well, who want, in the name of Islam and many other religions as well, who profess to be peaceful, to commit murder and to kill Christians and anyone else who disagrees with it. And it happens.